Welcome back to Restful Diaries. Tonight, we are high in the northern mountains of Scotland. In the late autumn of 1897, on the side of the mountain, there is a small wooden observatory, a stone hut with a wooden dome, and inside the dome, a brass telescope that takes pictures of the stars in the night sky on plates made of glass. One man lives there to run the station, alone. His name, Edward Maitland. 11 years at the station he has been, and the only person on the mountain. In late October, he develops a plate of a patch of sky in the constellation of the Charioteer, and finds on it a small smudge of light that was not there in September. Edward believes it may be a new comet. 6 years ago, he believed a similar thing like this and was wrong, and he is afraid of being wrong twice. He has not told anyone yet what he has seen. We hope you find comfort in these slow tellings of another's daily life. And if you do find peace in these stories, consider subscribing and tuning in for the next one. It helps other tired souls find their way here, one quiet story at a time. Now, Friday, the 22nd of October, 1897, and the observatory is alive with Edward's latest find. Let's begin. I developed a plate tonight that I've been waiting on for a week. It is a plate of a patch of sky in the constellation of the Charioteer, the one we call Auriga, off to the east as autumn comes on. I took the picture on Tuesday night, in 3 hours of careful tracking, and put the plate aside until I had a clear evening for the dark room, because the dark room is cold work, and I do not like to do it on a Saturday when I might have ridden down to the village instead. The plate came out well. The bright stars stood as they should, sharp little points across the glass, the way you want them. And then, near the bottom edge of the plate, in a part of the sky that should have been nothing at all, I found a small soft mark, not quite a star, not quite anything. I have a plate of the same patch, taken in September, in the drawer of the desk. I fetched it. I laid the two plates side by side under the lamp. The September plate has no mark there. The October plate has the mark. It could be many things. A flaw on the glass itself, a speck of dust, a smudge from the developing trays, a trick of the eye, late at night, after a day of single-handed work. It could be many things. And I have learned over the years on this mountain to keep my voice down before I name what a thing might be. So I will only write that I have seen something on the plate that is not on the older plate, and that I will photograph the same patch on the next clear night, and on the night after that. I have set the October plate up on the desk, where I will see it in the morning. The stove is down to its last red glow. Time to bank it and sleep. Saturday, October 23rd. I could not photograph the patch tonight. The cloud came in before dark. The high, thin cloud first, and then a thicker grey. and by the time the stars should have shone, there was nothing to see at all. I had set out the plate I wanted to use in its holder and made the dark room warm enough for the work afterwards, and put the stove a little higher than it needed to be. The way you do when you are pleased about a thing. None of it mattered. The sky decided. I went out at midnight, all the same, and stood by the dome with my coat on and looked east. There was a single small break in the cloud, just where Auriga should have been rising, and I saw two of the bright stars of the charioteer through it, and then the break closed. A foolish habit, this, to go out and look. The plates will be made when the plates can be made. The October plate is still on the desk. Tuesday. 3 nights of cloud, and then a clear one, with a hard frost on the dome, and the cold coming through the boards of the floor in the way it does in the autumn here. Before I have laid, the winter felt against the door. I took the picture. 3 hours and a quarter on the plate. The telescope's clockwork doing the slow work of keeping the stars still, while the plate gathered their light. The clockwork ran well tonight, with only one small adjustment near the end. I have it well oiled. I developed the plate after midnight, in the cold cupboard of the darkroom, hands in the trays, the small red lamp the only light. The plate came out. I dried it. I took it through to the desk and laid it beside the October plate. The smudge is there. It has moved. It is not a flaw. A flaw stays where you put it. A speck of dust stays where the dust was. The mark on the new plate is the mark from the October plate, but it has shifted by a small amount against the bright stars that fix the sky. I sat with the 2 plates side by side under the lamp for a long while. I will say only that something is there. I will not yet say what. Friday, October 29th. I have 4 plates of the patch now. Tuesdays, and a fair one from Wednesday, and a poor one from Thursday, with a streak of cloud across one corner, and a good one from tonight. The smudge is on all 4. On each it has shifted a small distance from where it sat on the one before. That tells me it is a real thing in the sky, and that it is moving, and not very quickly. What I would like to do now is measure exactly how far it has moved between the plates. For that there is the engine. The engine is the brass and walnut instrument on the side bench, which the foundation sent up the mountain in pieces in 1889, and which my predecessor and a Glasgow man between them put together over a fortnight. It is a heavy, careful thing, with a glass stage to lay the plate on, and a fine threaded screw, and a small eyepiece with a cross of black wire in it. You bring the cross to a star on the plate, and you turn the screw, and you read off how far you have turned, and that is your measurement. A turn of the screw is a small distance on the plate, and a small distance on the plate is a small distance in the sky. It is slow work. There is no other kind on this mountain. The weather is closing again tonight. The cloud has come in from the west, and the dome is dark. I will sit with the engine tomorrow, while there is no fresh plate to take, and I will measure what I have. Monday, the 1st of November. A fresh book today. The weather log for the new month. I rule it out on a Sunday evening before the first day of the month. 6 columns. The same 6 columns my predecessor used, and his predecessor before him, by the look of the older books on the shelf. Date, wind, cloud, frost, plates, notes. The book sits open on the desk all month, and I write in it each evening before I sleep. It is not a thrilling book to keep. The most of any month's entries say the same kind of thing. A wind from the southwest of moderate strength. A sky 3/4 cloud. A frost on the dome. No plates because of the cloud. There is a beauty in keeping a record like that, though, when you have kept it for a long enough time. The book remembers the weather of 11 years on this hill, and I remember some of that weather with the book, and a great deal of it I have forgotten, and the book has not. Tonight I wrote, wind northwest, light, cloud 4/8, thinning, frost heavy on the dome, plates 1 of the charioteer patch, and in the notes column, in small letters, only the word 5th. The 5th plate of the smudge. Thursday, November the 4th. Thursday is the day Donald McRae comes up. I hear his pony's bell before I see him, half a mile down the track, which gives me time to set the kettle on the stove and to bring the postbag down to the door. The bell is the only sound on the hill on a Thursday morning, in the long quiet between the last weather of the week and McRae's arrival. And after 11 years, I have come to know it as a friendly thing. The pony is a sturdy, small, shaggy beast called Jock, who comes up the steep last 100 yards as if it were nothing, and who stands by the door breathing slow steam while McRae unhitches the load. There is the week's bread and a packet of butter wrapped in muslin, a small joint, the bag of oats, a sack of coal, and the post. There is whatever I have asked for, which this week was a fresh stack of plates from the foundation and a tin of needle-pointed pencils I had run low on. There is the post out from me, which is 2 letters, one to the foundation with the month's report, and one to Mr. Lindsay in Edinburgh. McRae and I drink the tea by the stove. He tells me the news of the village, which is small news, and I am grateful for it. The pony cools in the lee of the dome. Then McRae and Jock go down the track again, and the bell goes with them, and the hill is quiet and that is Thursday. Sunday, November 7th. The October plate is in its small wooden frame on the desk, upright against a book, where I see it the first thing when I come into the room in the morning and the last thing when I bank the stove at night. It is only a piece of glass with the picture of a small piece of sky on it. The sky is dark grey, almost black, and the stars are small, clean dots in it. And there in the lower part of the frame, with a tiny pencil ring drawn around it on the back of the glass, is the smudge. A person coming into this hut today would not see anything special about the plate on the desk. It is the kind of plate I have made hundreds of in the 11 years here, and not the prettiest. The prettiest are of the great clouds of light in the Milky Way that take a person's breath away the first time they come out of the developing tray. This plate is a plain working plate of a plain working patch of sky. It is on the desk because I want to be reminded each morning that I saw it, and because I do not want to take any step about it that I have not slept on first. So it stays. Wednesday. I wrote to Lindsay tonight. Henry Lindsay taught me first at Edinburgh in the year I was 19, and was the man who set me reading the old plate books in the university library, and who, a year later, recommended me to the foundation that built this station. He is past 70 now and retired from the chair, but he writes to me with the post every fortnight or 3 weeks, in a hand that is still very fine, and asks me what the sky has shown me, and tells me of the meetings of the society and the people he sees. The letters from Edinburgh are more nights than I would like to say. The company I have in the hut. I have not told Lindsay about the smudge. I am not going to tell him yet. I wrote about the weather and the new stack of plates and a small repair I have made to the dome shutter, and a book of Greek poetry he sent me up in the autumn that I have been reading slowly. I did not write about the charioteer patch. He will know I have been doing my usual rounds, and he will not know I have stepped out of them until I am sure I have. It is a strange thing to have a thing to say to a friend and to hold it back. It is also, I think, the sensible thing. He would tell me himself to hold it back if he were here, until I could put a number to it. I am still gathering my numbers. Saturday. 2 more plates this week. A good one on Wednesday and a fair one tonight. Both showing the smudge in its new place. Both with the bright stars sharp and well placed for the engine. I have measured them all now. 6 plates. 6 positions of the smudge. The smudge moves in a small, steady line against the fixed stars, eastward and a little down, the way an object in the outer parts of the solar system would move at this time of year, looking from where I am. I write this in the book of my own notes, and not in the weather log, because the weather log is for the station and for whoever comes after me, and the small notebook is for me. I keep them separate by an old habit. The station's books should hold what is sure. The man's book can hold what is not yet sure. I am beginning to think the smudge is a comet. I will not yet write the word in the station's book. I have written it here, where I can cross it out if I am wrong, and no one will see. Monday, 15th of November. Mr. Lindsay's letter came with the pony last Thursday, and I have only now sat down to it properly. He has a good letter to him. He writes in a low, slow voice, the way a person of 70 years and a long teaching life will write, asking after my coal supply and saying that the society had a good paper read on a small variable star in the constellation of the Swan, and noting that the trees on the Edinburgh side of the bridges are now bare. He sent me a clipping from the Scotsman about the new electric lighting on Princes Street, which he thought I would like to see, being a man of the dark sky, and therefore, he supposes, a man with an opinion on street lamps. His last paragraph asks, gently, whether I have been seeing well of late, by which Lindsay means whether I have been finding any small new thing on my plates, because he knows what I am for, and he knows what I'm hoping to find. The year after the year, on this hill, he always asks this. He always asks it in a way I can answer with a no. This time, I answered with a no. I am holding the truer answer back. I wrote a reply to send down with McRae on Thursday, gave him the news of the dome shutter and the coal, and signed it as I always do. Then I sealed it. I had to seal it twice in the end, because the first time I sealed it, I thought foolishly that I might add a postscript and tell him after all. Alas, I did not. I unsealed the letter, took the postscript out before I had written it, and sealed it again. The second seal is the one McRae will carry. Friday. 8 nights of cloud now, since the last good plate. The sky has been low and grey for a week, and the wind has been wet, and the rain has frozen overnight on the dome, and had to be tapped off the shutter in the morning with the long pole I keep by the door for the purpose. I have not been able to add a plate to the run. The smudge, wherever it is in the sky, is moving along its small path without me, and I am keeping up by guesswork only. I sit in the hut and read, and write to the foundation, and reread Lindsay's letter, and watch the cloud, and bank the stove, and wait. The weather is the most of the work on this mountain. People at home think the work is the telescope, the looking, the picture. The looking is one night in 3 or 4. The rest is waiting on weather, and tending the kit, and writing things down. A man who comes up here for the looking and not for the rest of it does not stay. Tuesday, November 23rd. I built the stove up high tonight, the way I do once or twice a winter when the cold has begun to settle in the hut, and and the door felt has not yet caught up with it, and the small back room where I sleep needs an hour of real heat before I will get into the bed. The stove is a small black cast iron one in the corner of the front room, with its pipe going up through the roof. It is the heart of the hut. It cooks my food, dries my plates, warms the dark room and the bedroom both. By the way, the pipe runs up the wall through the partition. In 11 years on this hill, I have spent a good fraction of my evenings sitting by it, and I would say more of my thinking has been done in front of that stove than at the desk or at the telescope. I sat by it tonight a long time, with the kettle hissing soft on the top of it, and I thought about the smudge. I thought mostly about whether I should tell Lindsay yet. I came to no answer. The stove gave me no answer either, but the heat was company. Saturday, I read back through the weather log tonight, from the first day of October to today. October was a fair month for plates. The first week was clear, the second cloudy, the third clear again, the fourth a mixture. 12 plates altogether in October, which is a good month here. The book records each one, in my hand, in the small, careful letters I write at the end of a long observing night. November has been thin. 5 plates so far in the month, with the cloud running long. I have lost 10 clear nights I might otherwise have used in the long stretch from the 11th to the 21st, in which there was no break I could trust the telescope on. The smudge has moved through the better part of a constellation in those weeks, and I have a thin handful of plates to show for the watching of it. That is the kind of arithmetic a man on this hill must learn to make peace with. Weather does not bargain. You take the nights you are given. I have closed the log for tonight. The wind is east, light. The cloud is 6/8. No plates. The smudge moves on without me. Tuesday, 30th of November. A clear, cold night, and I took the patch again. A long plate, 4 hours of tracking, the longest of the run, because I wanted the bright stars sharp enough to give the engine its best chance with the smudge, which is fainter than the bright stars by a fair margin and benefits from the longer light. It came out very well. I dried it carefully and brought it through to the desk. It is the 7th plate now, and the smudge is unmistakable, sitting where my guess from the earlier plates told me it would be. Give or take the small uncertainty of guessing. I sat at the desk a while afterwards with the 7 plates in their row, oldest to newest, the smudge stepping along across them like a slow foot across a long board, a small steady mark moving slowly across the sky over 6 weeks. That is a comet's behavior. It is also 1 or 2 other things' behavior. I will say nothing definite yet. I wrote in the small notebook the date and the new measurement. I wrote, beside the new measurement, 7 now. Nothing more. Saturday, December 4th. A setback today, of the small, foolish kind. I sat down to the engine after breakfast, fresh, with the 7th plate from Tuesday under the glass, intending to refine my measurement of the smudge against the same 4 bright stars I have been using as my reference across the whole run. The work went well for an hour, and then I noticed, when I went to check my arithmetic against the earlier plates, that I had been using the wrong reference star on one of them, since the 2nd plate at least. It is not a disaster. The wrong star is bright and easy enough to identify once you have looked properly, and I will simply remeasure the run with the right reference, and the work will be right again. But it set me back a half a day, and it set me back more than that in the small private way that mistakes of this kind do to a man who does not work alongside anyone, because there was no one in the room to laugh and say, "Ah, you have been at this too long. Edward, go and have your tea." I went and had my tea anyway. I came back to the engine, and I picked the right star this time, and I started again. Thursday, 9th of December. I have been thinking, since the wrong star on Saturday, about the time 6 years ago when I was wrong about a more serious thing. It was in the 2nd year I was at Carnegie that I found, or thought I had found, a slow, new moving object on a plate, and worked it for 3 weeks across more plates, and convinced myself it was new, and wrote to Lindsay about it, and Lindsay wrote to a friend at Greenwich, and the friend at Greenwich, very kindly and very quickly, replied with the catalogue number of the small asteroid I had been watching all along, which any astronomer in the south of England with a decent reference list could have told me at a glance. It was not anyone's fault, but mine. I had not done my reading. I had been too pleased to look at a plate and find a thing on it. Lindsay did not blame me. The Greenwich man did not blame me. Lindsay, in his letter back, called it the kind of mistake that any young man working alone in the dark would make, and that a year or 2 more of plates would teach me out of. But I have not forgotten it, and I will not be forgetting it tonight either. So I am being slow. So I am holding back the letter. So I am measuring the smudge 10 times for every once I would have measured it then. Better to be slow and right than quick and wrong. The mountain has taught me at least this. The following Monday, a run of clear weather. 4 nights in a row. The longest clear run since the autumn. Cold nights, very cold, with the stars bright as they only are when the air is dry and the cloud is gone, and the wind has dropped to a still hush. The kind of nights that pay back the long grey weeks before them. I have taken the patch 4 times. The plates are good. The smudge is in each one, exactly where my run of measurements and my penciled forward guess on a sheet of plain paper said the smudge should be. That is, perhaps, the news of the week. The smudge is now moving the way I am predicting it to move, within the small uncertainty of the work. A pencil line on paper, drawn last week, is being walked along, night by night, by a small mark on glass. That is a quiet, good feeling. After the wrong star, after 6 years of remembering not to be too pleased too quickly, I have not yet drawn the smudge as a comet on the sheet. I have drawn it as a small open circle. A comet would be a small filled circle on the chart with a tail line. The sheet is in the desk drawer with the unsent letter to Lindsay. Soon. Saturday, December 18th. 11 plates of the patch now. I laid them out tonight, in their wooden trays in 2 rows. Oldest at the top left and newest at the bottom right. And I stood at the desk and looked at them all together. The smudge tracks across the 11 plates in a long, slow line, plate to plate, like a small, slow boat seen from a hill, going the same way at the same speed and never once swerving. It is a comet. I am near enough sure now to write the word in the small notebook properly. Not yet in the station's log. The station's log does not yet need to know. I made a fresh cup of tea, sat at the desk with the 11 plates in their trays, and I drank the tea slowly. I have not had a feeling exactly like the one I had tonight for a long time. It was not loud. It was a small, full feeling of having been right to take the work slowly, of the slowness having been worth it. The mountain quiet was around me as it always is. The stove ticked as the stove cooled. The patch of sky, somewhere far up there in the black, kept moving. I will write to Lindsay this Thursday. Not the smudge yet. Not yet. But I will write, knowing I will be writing it soon. Friday. McRae came up yesterday with the Christmas packet from the village, and from Lindsay, and from the foundation. He stayed an hour for the tea, longer than usual, because of the time of year, and because the village had had a good market last week, and he wanted to tell me about it. There were 2 letters from Lindsay, the second a Christmas one, and a small parcel from him with a book in it. There was a card from the foundation, a stiff thing with a brown print of the Observatory at Edinburgh on the front, and inside the secretary's hand wishing me a good Christmas and a productive new year. There was a long letter from my sister in Perth with the family news, and a small drawing from her boy of, I think, a horse. The hut feels, with these things in it, less single than it has felt in the weeks before. There is a small, good warmth in a packet of letters from people who think of you, even when you live where you live. I will not work tomorrow. The stove is laid for the morning. The kettle is full. The bread is from the village and fresh. I will read Lindsay's book and write back to my sister and let the sky look after itself for a day, if it pleases. Wednesday, December 29th. The year is closing. A few days yet, but the work is closing with it, in the way the work always closes at the year's end on this hill, with the weather hard and the plates few, and the long bookkeeping coming due. I have been writing up the annual report for the foundation. They want a tidy account, in a clean hand, of the plates taken in the year, the patches photographed, the small repairs to the kit, the use of coal and oil, the state of the dome. The report is a long evening's work, and I have done it before. I have not put the smudge in this year's report. I have not put it in for a clear reason, which is that I am still measuring the smudge. And a half-measured smudge has no place in an annual report that goes to a board of trustees who will read the report and ask questions of it I cannot yet answer. It will be in next year's report. By next year's report, I will have a name and a track, and either a comment or a quiet entry I will not have to send at all. Both are honest endings to the work. I will be glad of whichever the sky decides on. Tuesday, the 4th of January, 1898. The new year, and the work picks back up. I took a plate of the patch tonight. The 12th. The smudge is moving on its slow line still, into a part of the constellation it has not yet been in, and the bright stars I am using as my reference are still well placed against the smudge. I will need a new reference set in another fortnight, as the smudge crosses the edge of the field, and I have already chosen the stars I will use and noted them on the sheet. That is all there is to write tonight. The kit is well. The stove is well. The pony bell is the day after tomorrow. A small thing only. As I came out of the dome at 1 in the morning, with the plate in its holder against my coat to keep it from the cold, I looked east, where the constellation was now well up, and I thought, I am the only person on this hill, tonight, looking at this patch of sky, and I am one of perhaps 2 or 3 people on the surface of the earth thinking about that small moving thing inside the patch. That is a curious place to be. It is a kind of company. Saturday, January 8th. A long evening at the engine. I had 3 plates to measure. The December plates I had wanted to come back to with a fresh eye. And tonight was the night for it, with no clear weather and nothing else to do. The engine is a thing you have to sit at properly. You set the plate on its glass stage. You bring the lamp behind the plate to a soft, even light. You take the eyepiece in your hand and you bring the cross of black wire onto the first reference star. You turn the screw, you read the dial, you write the reading down, you move to the next star, you turn the screw, You read the dial, you write it down. Then the smudge. The eyepiece is small, and the work is small, and an hour at the engine will make a man's neck stiff and a man's eyes tired. And there is no way to do the work any faster. I measured the 3 plates and added the new numbers to the long table I have been keeping, in pencil, in the small notebook. The numbers continue to fall along a line. The line is straight, near enough. If a thing is moving on a straight line, slowly, against the fixed stars, and continues to do so plate after plate, and you have 11 points of the thing is not a star and not an asteroid in the inner solar system, where the motion would be faster. It is a comet, far out, on its long, quiet path past us. I wrote that, finally, in the small notebook, not in pencil, but in ink. The word comet. 3 letters of comet underlined. I will not unwrite it now. The following Wednesday, a storm in from the west yesterday, and a wet, heavy snow with the storm. And today, the dome has had to be cleared, and the track is half buried. And McRae will not be up tomorrow if the snow does not melt back tonight. There is a thing to do for the dome in this kind of weather, which is to climb the iron ladder on the outside with the broom and brush the snow off the shutter and the seams while the snow is still loose before it freezes hard. I did that this morning. It is cold work and high, and I do not like it. But it is the kind of work that, if you do not do it, makes a worse work for you later in the week. In the afternoon, I sat by the stove and read Lindsay's Christmas book, which is a small, fine essay on the keeping of records in old ironmongers' shops in 18th century Edinburgh, and which I would not have thought to want, and which I am finding I want. Lindsay knows what he sends. The hill is white now, all of the hill, in every direction, and the hut is the only dark thing on the hill for several miles. I came out at dusk to bring in another bucket of coal, and I stood a minute in the cold and looked at the hut from a few yards off. And the hut looked very small and very alone, with its one window lit and its pipe of smoke going up. But I knew that inside the small hut, on the desk, in the small notebook, was the word comet in ink. And that was a warm thing to know, walking back to the door. Tuesday, 18th of January. I drew the track tonight. I have, in the desk drawer, a sheet of plain heavy paper with the part of the sky and the charioteer marked on it in my hand. The bright reference stars in their places, and the smudges' positions for each of the 12 plates as small open circles, with the dates beside the circles. Tonight, beside the 12th small open circle, I made the next mark a small filled circle with a thin pencil line back through all the others, and a faint dotted line extending forward across the rest of the chart. A comet on a sheet of paper does not look like much. It is a line of small dots, with a date by each one, and a long, uncertain knotted continuation. And it does not move when you look at it, which is the one thing the real comet always does. But there it is now, on the sheet, with a track. I put the sheet back in the drawer, and the unsent letter to Lindsay on top of the sheet, in the way I have been putting them. The next clear night, the smudge ought to be at the next dot. We shall see if it is. Saturday. The smudge is at the next dot. A clear, cold night. The plate taken, the plate dried, the plate brought through to the desk, the engine measurement made. The smudge is where my forward dotted line said the smudge should be, to within a hair. I am as sure as I can be from this mountain that this is a comet. I have 13 plates of it. I have a clean, straight track. I have a forward prediction that the sky is keeping. I will not be ashamed if a telegram from me crosses the post of a telegram from a larger observatory making the same announcement. I will be ashamed if a telegram from me has to be taken back. That is the thing I will not do. So, I am beginning tonight to draft the telegram. I have written one form of the words on a small slip and folded the slip into the desk drawer. I will write another form of the words tomorrow, and another the day after, and I will choose the form that does not promise more than I can keep, and I will send that. There is a great deal of care in a small thing. There is a great deal more in a smaller thing still. Tuesday, the 1st of February. A fair week. 2 more plates this week, the 14th and the 15th. Both clean, both showing the comet at the next pencil dot, both adding a small certainty to the certainty already on the sheet. I am no longer looking at the plates as a man looking for an answer. I am looking at the plates as a man checking an answer he already has. That is a different feeling. The work has changed shape under me. I sharpened the pencils tonight, the whole tin of them. I do that twice a winter, by habit, and tonight was the night for it. I sat by the stove with the small knife and the tin in my lap, made each point sharp enough to draw a line a human hair wide, and put them back in the tin in their row, blunt ends down, points up. A small habit, a foolish thing to write down in a diary. But I find that on the nights when I am pleased about my work, I sharpen the pencils, and the pleasure stays in my hands longer than it would if I only sat. The hands of a man on a mountain need something to do. Saturday, February 12th. I have been drafting the telegram across the week. A telegram is paid for by the word, sent down the wire from Tom Narvan to Greenwich. And a man who pays for his telegrams by the word learns to write the kind that says what it has to say, and no more. So the drafts I have written are short, but the short ones are the hard ones. I wrote first, new comet, faint, Auriga, slow eastward motion, position measured, 15 plates, request confirmation, Maitland Carn Giel, 21 words. It said what it had to say. Then I rewrote it. Possible new comet, faint, Auriga, eastward, 15 plates, position to follow by post, Maitland Carn Giel, 16 words. Possible. Now the first word after new, which I want. Positions promised by post, because positions in a telegram are easy to mistype, and a mistyped position is worse than no position at all. Then I rewrote that. Possible faint comet, Auriga, eastward motion, 15 plates, positions followed by post, Maitland Carn Giel, 14 words. I think that is what I will send. I have folded the latest draft into the desk drawer with the sheet and the unsent letter to Lindsay. The drawer is filling with paper this winter. Friday, February 25th. I wrote at last to Lindsay tonight. A long letter, 4 pages. I told Lindsay about the patch in the charioteer, the September plate, the October plate, the smudge, the steady moving of the smudge across the autumn and the winter, the wrong reference star, the long stretches of cloud, the slow line of the track, the careful measurements, the 15 plates. I told him I am going to send a telegram to Greenwich next Thursday with the pony when McRae goes back down. I told Lindsay also, plainly, about the asteroid 6 years ago. I said, this is why I have been slow, and this is why I am drafting and redrafting a telegram of 14 words for a week. He will know. He will smile at his desk, I think, in his small house in Edinburgh. He will write back with the kind of letter he writes. I sealed the letter only once tonight. I did not need a second sealing. The letter is going down on Thursday with the telegram. The drawer holds 3 things now, ready. The long letter to Lindsay, the small folded telegram, and the sheet with the track. I have closed the drawer and put the kettle on and gone to bed. Tuesday, March 8th. Tomorrow night is the last night I will have to add to the plates before McRae comes up on Thursday. I will photograph the patch one more time, if the sky lets me, for a 16th plate, and I will measure the plate after, before I put the bag together. The telegram is chosen. I sat with the 3 folded slips on the desk this evening, side by side under the lamp, and I read them once each, slowly, and then I read the chosen one again. Possible faint comet, Auriga, eastward motion, 15 plates, positions follow by post, Maitland Carnegie, 14 words, cautious, honest. It does not promise more than I can keep. It does not claim a thing I have not yet proven, but it tells Greenwich plainly what I have, and asks them, by implication, to look. I have put the chosen slip on top of the letter to Lindsay in the desk drawer. The 2 unused drafts I have folded into the small notebook as a record. A man should keep his unsent words. They are part of the choosing. The drawer closed. Kettle on, and I'll be off to sleep early. Tomorrow night will be a long one, if the sky stays fair. Thursday, 10th of March, 1898. I heard the pony's bell before 9. I had the kettle on, the post bag by the door, the long letter to Lindsay sealed, and the small folded telegram inside the bag in its own envelope, with a note to the clerk at Tomnarven with the foundation's account number on it, so that the bill would go to Edinburgh and not be a thing the village man would have to mind for me. McRae came in with the week's bread, the coal, the post, and the news of the village. We took the tea by the stove. He spoke about a roof that had blown off the Smith shed in the last gale, and about a boy in the village taken ill but mending. I listened gladly, as I always listen on a Thursday morning. When the tea was done, I gave McRae the bag, and I gave him the telegram separately in his hand, and I said, "That one is for the post office, Donald, and the telegram is to go down the wire to Greenwich today, if the wire is up." He looked at the telegram and at me, and he said in his slow voice, "Aye, very good, Mr. Maitland." He put the telegram in the inside pocket of his coat and buttoned the coat over it. Then McRae and Jock the pony went down the track. I stood at the door of the hut, in my coat, and I listened to the bell. It is a small, soft bell. The bell went away from me down the slope, the way the bell always does. Fainter, and then fainter. And then there was a moment I was not sure whether I was hearing the bell, or whether I was hearing the bell in my memory only. And then there was no bell at all, and only the wind on the dome. The telegram had left the mountain. By tonight, if the wire was up, the telegram would be at Greenwich, words on a strip of paper in a clerk's hands, with my name at the end of the words. I closed the door of the hut. I went back to the desk The October plate was where the plate had been all winter, upright against its book, with its pencil ring on the smudge that had begun all this. I took the October plate down, and I put it in the base of measured plates with the other 15. The desk was clear. The night was forecast to be clear too, with a high pressure coming in from the north. There is a patch of sky on the southern edge of Gemini I have been meaning to begin a run on. For the asteroid work, the Foundation has asked me to start in the spring, and the best time for it is the first weeks of the long evenings. I went into the dome before the sun was properly down, and I checked the clockwork, and I oiled the small bearing on the side that had been a little dry in February, and I set out a fresh plate in its holder for tonight. There is always another patch of sky. The kettle is on. My thoughts are going. What will the night hold for me? If you happen to still be awake and yearning for sleep, you can go ahead and restart this video now, or take a look at one of our other videos. They're sure to help your restless soul find the deep sleep you're after. We hope you sleep well. Good night.